Gardner was born July 11, 1943 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Howard Gardner's parents, Ralph and Hilde Gardner, were German Jewish immigrants who fled from Germany before World War II. Just before Howard Gardner was born, his brother Eric was killed in a sleighing accident. Gardner was born when World War II was in action. World War II was from 1939 to 1945. Before Gardner was born, the Great Depression affected people during the times of 1929 to 1939. Gardner taught piano from 1958 to 1969, and he described himself as a studious child who gained much pleasure from playing the piano. During the 1960s, economic expansion took place, and Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated. In 1965, Gardner graduated from Harvard University with his Bachelor of Arts in Social Studies. In 1969, his first child, Karen, was born. In 1971, Gardner's second child, James, was born, and he also completed his PhD from Harvard University in Cynthia. In 1976, Gardner's third child, Stephen, was born. Teaching, and today he has 4 grandchildren and he is 76 years old.
I began to work simultaneously with children, normal kids, gifted kids, kids with learning problems, and with brain damaged adults, people who were once fine but who had a stroke or a tumor or a missile accident. And the more I spent with working with these two populations, and it was important that I was seeing kids every day and brain damaged patients every day, the more I became convinced that kind of at a gut level that it was much too simple to say smart, average, dumb, that people could be very good in one thing, average in a second thing, and not very good in a third. That's an intuition which I'm sure has been had by millions of people over the years. I think I then did 2 things which were important academically. Number one, I set up a series of criteria to essentially define what the human faculties were. And then I decided, and I don't never remembered how it happened, but it was important to call these intelligences. Mm-hmm. If I'd written a book called 7 or 8 or 9 Talents, mm-hmm. and said people can have different kinds of talents, everybody mm-hmm. would say, what else is new? Because we know they're musicians, they're athletes, they're chess players, and so on. Right. But it was the notion of saying there are 8 or 9 faculties. What we usually call smart is a conjunction of language and logic, but it doesn't say anything about spatial ability, about musical ability, about the capacity to solve problems using your hands or your body, about understanding other people, understanding yourself, being able to make distinctions in the natural world. Those are different faculties. And I think what sealed the deal in 1980 was we could find some neurological evidence that the language abilities came from one part of the brain, musical abilities second, and so on. So in the early 80s, I promulgated the theory of multiple intelligences, often called MI theory. You're kind to say it's universally adopted. I would say it's universally fretted about.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform.